who's as adamant about his or her position as I am about mine, whom you think is sharp. Seriously, we know that. And another thing, we heard him say that... Hey sports fans, Larry Elder here with another edition of And Another Thing. Believe it or not, this is edition number 81. If you want to become an Eldorado, go to LarryElder.com, fill out the form. You're going to get a free copy of my feature-length documentary called Michael and Me. It's sort of a spoof on Michael Moore's documentary, Bowling for Columbine, where we track down Michael Moore to try to ask him how many times Americans actually use guns to defend themselves. 3 times, Michael Moore, when I confronted him, gave me an answer, and the answer wasn't very persuasive. I think you'll enjoy it. Just go to LarryElder.com and fill out the form. You'll get a free copy of Michael and Me if you're in El Dorado. Now for edition number 81 of And Another Thing, I want to talk about 3 things. The Status of Forces Agreement. I'll explain that a little bit more in a bit. The IRS scandal, and the scandal what's going on the borders with these children. First, the Status of Forces Agreement. What do I mean by that? When President Obama got elected in 2008, if you go on the website, under the President-elect website, it talks about how important the Status of Forces Agreement is. Those are the terms and conditions under which we leave troops in Iraq. At the time when Obama was running, there were tens of thousands of troops in Iraq. Obama promised to get them out, but the assumption was it would be some sort of residual force. A residual force requires a Status of Forces Agreement, which sets forth the terms and conditions under which the force can remain. For example, there's no place where we have troops where our soldiers are subject to local law. They're always subject to American law. However, the Iraqis wanted the Americans remaining behind in Iraq to be subject to local law. No president would have done that. President Obama could have pushed back, and they probably would have caved. Most people believe they would have caved and then given us what we wanted. But Obama never wanted to be in Iraq. He used this argument that the Iraqis were being unreasonable about the Status of Forces Agreement, used that as a pretext to walk away because he never wanted to be there. How do we know he never wanted to be there? During the 2010 debate with Mitt Romney said to him something like, now, I supported leaving a residual force there, and Obama said, well, I didn't. Not quite that way. He said, I didn't want to leave 10,000 people there because we would be bogged down. Now, the troops had been all pulled out a year earlier, and the debate really was about whether or not there should have been a Status of Forces Agreement there, whether or not there should have been troops there. And Romney said yes, there should have been at least 10,000 or so, and Obama said no. Otherwise, we get bogged down. Now, why is that important? Well, because fast forward, as you know, Iraq right now is descending into chaos and civil war, and now the finger pointing is beginning. Who lost Iraq? Well, it turns out that in the case of Iraq, President Obama really wanted out. He campaigned to get out. He said he wanted to get out, and he didn't push back when the Iraqis were giving him that unreasonable thing regarding the status of forces. Joe Biden said that Iraq is going to be one of this administration's, quote, great achievements. President Obama said, I'm turning over Iraq that is safe, that is secure, that is democratic. Oh, and this question just in. I was asked about the IRS scandal and the left's response to it. The left's response to it is to defend Lois Lerner, to defend what the IRS has done, to say that the real reason for all of this targeting is that a lot of these nonprofits were, in fact, violating the law and they needed to be looked at. Unfortunately, a disproportionately large number of the violators were very likely these Tea Party-oriented groups. Don't look at me. That's basically what their defense is. What both of us ought to be saying is this. We don't know what the facts are. We do know that Richard Nixon was accused of politicizing the IRS. Many presidents have been accused of politicizing the IRS. Isn't this an opportunity for us to say, maybe we ought to think about the power that we're giving government, so that when a new group comes in, you don't like that group, that person has all this power to now change everything to the point where you're unhappy. Why should we let the federal government have the power over our retirement investments? Why would you let the federal government have power over our health care? Why would you let the federal government have power over charity giving? Why shouldn't that be state and local? And isn't the IRS running amok and the EPA running amok, saying that federal government has way too much power and it ought to be down to the individuals and to the states, just as the founding fathers intended? Shouldn't that be the response to this IRS scandal, as opposed to finger pointing and saying, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad? How about it's a bad idea for the government to be taking this much money in the first place? Let's get back to collecting the kind of money that the founding fathers wanted, which were duties and tariffs, shrink the government down to the size that it wanted. We don't even need an IRS. I hope you enjoyed this small excerpt. If you want to see the full video, got to be in El Dorado. Go to my website, LarryElder.com, log in, fill out the form. It'll cost you about $4.75 a month, or about the price of a mocha frappuccino latte at your favorite coffee house. As you can tell, I don't like coffee. I'm a tea drinker. See you next time.